They were rampaging along, won their first 2 games. They've lost their last 2, but they could have probably won both of them.
A fantastic looking facility there in the deep south.
I'm sure they're going to come out firing tonight.
From memory, he was leading last week. Are you going to be leading this week, or?
From bottom with 6 points and second from bottom with 5. Yes and no. Yes and no. It paid off for them. They got a 2, double the 4 and won 6 points. Depends what the teams above you do, doesn't it?
Unbiased, Miles Davis.
Welcome to Unbiased with Miles Davis, where we go behind the scenes of the magnificent game of lawn bowls in New Zealand. Today, I've got a very special guest, I believe, current world champion due to COVID helping out, but maybe I'm wrong. Shannon McIlroy. Shannon, am I right in saying that you are still the reigning world champion?
Yes, still current world singles title holder, and will be until the till the next world championship commences, really. So until that is complete, I still hold that title.
Magnificent. Right. Well, that's more in the recent past. Let's go all the way back, as we do in this series, to find out a little bit about the individuals that we know the names. We might not know too much about them in the background. Now, I understand you were born in Gisborne. Tell us about that and what you remember from your life in Gisborne.
Yeah. Born and raised in Gisborne. Was there for I suppose the first 19 years of my life. A cool little town to grow up in. Not the easiest town at the same time. There's a lot of sort of I suppose influences with outside of your family life and stuff that can be tough on teenagers, especially growing up, whether they make good decisions or bad ones. But yeah, it was a challenge, but so much fun. My dad was a keen diver, a keen camper, loved his lawn bowls, and so we got to experience quite a lot of things like that. Going free diving, crayfish kinners, pawas, all the nice attractions of the sea. That's we indulged in quite a bit of as kids, and we were very lucky in that aspect that my old man would take us to all these places to do things like that as kids. So something that I'll forever cherish in my life. And as time goes on, I managed to, he sort of dragged me into the bowling club as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old. So that's sort of where it started. I almost thought that maybe it was his way of keeping me out of trouble. Going down to the bowling club, but I didn't really like it that much when I was a kid. I copped a lot of grief growing up playing lawn bowls. It wasn't really that well accepted back in those days, so it was tough.
I can imagine that, Shannon. Actually, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. But yeah, now that I think about it, I can imagine you copping a fair bit of stick for it. But when you were younger, primary school, where did you go to primary school, and can you remember much about it?
Remember lots, because we went to Riverdale Primary School because we probably had the biggest family there at once. We had at one point 6 boys there, and I'm sure that the teachers were pulling their hair out because some of us were just little ratbags, just kids being kids. And a lot of there's actually still a lot of teachers that were there when we were there. I got a photo up on the wall there, and yeah, it's quite a special place. But yeah, school was cool. It was really good, really good.
But what about secondary school? Where did you go there?
Secondary school, interesting. So I started off at Boys High, and I think that stage in my life, I just never really had any goals or any aspirations for my future. What I wanted, I just went day by day. I didn't really enjoy going to school that much. I used to wag all the time and go to the bowling club at that stage, because by then, when I was 13, I'd been playing lawn bowls for a good part of 7 years. So I had grown this attraction to the sport by then, and it's all I wanted to do. at that point, I did not like going to school. I think I lasted about 3 months at Boys High when I first started. And then there was a lot of phone calls coming to my parents saying, where's your son? He hasn't turned up. And so Dad would ask me when he come home from work and what's going on. And I'd say to him, I've been at the bowling club all day. And he sort of laughed, but at the same time was a little bit disappointed that I wasn't, really applying myself. But in the end, I said, I'm not lying to you. Just my uncle was a greenkeeper, so he was always there. So I said, you can check in with him. He was there. So yeah, that's what I used to do. And I used to wag school all the time. There's certain classes anyway. I just go to all my PE classes and would not apply myself in other areas as a teenager. And I would sometimes walk in one side of the school grounds and walk out the other and go straight to the bowling club, which was about a half an hour walk away. And I'll just stay there all day.
So I'm assuming that Gisborne Boys High would have got sick of this in the end and shuffled you off somewhere else. What happened?
Yes, so there was a few truancy officer visits and to find out what was happening with my time. So eventually I ended up leaving Boys High School after 3 or 4 months. And I went on a course where at Turanga Araro it was called in Gisborne, and I went on a course there. And just to try and the course was really good for me because it had half the day was doing some form of either exercise or sports or outdoor recreation, and then the other half was doing unit standards. But it was a lot of one-on-one with teachers, so they made it very easy for the students that were there. And so I saw out the rest of that year at a course, which in turn led me back to school again. My attendance was really good. I turned up every day. I was applying myself in the right areas, and then so after that full year or pretty much a full year of being on a course, I managed to go back to high school, which was at Lyndon High School the following year. So it worked out really good.
I find that amazing, actually, and it just shows, I suppose, the looking at it in different ways can help kids through. And I suppose you must consider yourself a bit lucky to have had that opportunity, because you could have just drifted off down a path with no education and basically ended up in a fair bit of trouble later on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's and as I said earlier, it's easy Gisborne was an easy place to not be on a straight and narrow. There's so many other influences there on people's lives, whether it be in bad ways, whether it be gangs, alcohol, drugs, all that kind of stuff. It was easy to get a hold of it. A lot of people that you seem to surround yourself with were involved in those kind of circles, but they were your friends. And when you're a teenager, your friends are your friends, and regardless of who their family are or what your family is, the ones that you like, you're always going to hang around, whether they're good or bad. And I had a few of my mates that a lot of their friends were into, or their parents or families were into gangs and stuff. So, but you go to their house and you're exposed to that, but you didn't really think too much of it because it was quite a normal thing. It was quite a normal thing in Gisborne, and even today, it's still like that. So, there's a challenge there. Whether you go down that path, and it's quite easy to go down there, or you just take your own route. But that was part of the challenge of growing up.
Did you manage to avoid getting into any trouble, Shannon, or did you have your odd little brush with the law yourself? You must have got into some trouble.
Oh, not a lot of trouble, to be honest, but I was always I was always around it. It was always around me and stuff. So you had fights with guys, and whether it be at the skate park or whether it be down at the local sort of like the basketball area. Some people get smart, and it was just like an ego thing, I think, when you're growing up and you just want to see who's bigger and stronger. and all that stuff was part and parcel with the challenges of being a teenager in Gisborne. So yeah, there was the odd one. I think I got a few telling offs by the youth police officers to pull your head in. But nothing major of committing crime that you potentially could do some form of juvenile time or jail time. I was never really that kind of person because I was always active with sport. That used up a lot of my time. Because even just before when I was doing law balls, I was doing the karate for a club. I did rock and roll.
Fantastic! a man of many talents. When you're at school, I mean, you love sport, obviously, and I think you're an example of the fact that sport can help put people on the right path. Can serve as a distraction from other things. But what other sports did you play at school? What sports did you enjoy playing?
I love rugby. Love playing rugby. It's because all your friends, you grow up as a kid, most kids or boys in New Zealand, more often in those days, they just played rugby a lot. I had my cousins and my team that we grew up all together. All my close friends, rugby was we every Saturday. And as you got older to your higher teenage years, you get to first 15 rugby. You have the after rugby functions, which are brilliant. So it was, that was the one thing that I really liked doing. I dabbled a little bit with waka ama as well. My brothers did more of it than me. They were a little bit older, and they were national champions in their age group for many years. So I used to jump in the boat with them and and go out for paddle, and that was really good. It was really good. It's heaps of fun. I was always drawn to my older brothers. I wanted to just hang around with them all the time. So wherever they went, I wanted to go. And because there's a bit of an age gap from my next youngest brother, so I was always drawn to the older boys. So so with rugby and waka ama, I did the martial arts when I was a little bit younger, up until I was a teenager.
So Shannon, when do you actually leave school, and what do you do when you leave school?
You mean like for when I fully left high school?
Yeah,
I left when I was 17 after my sixth form year. At that stage, I knew that I wanted to chase a bowling dream of mine. So, I'd played for New Zealand under-18s for a few years by then. So, and I was close, even at 17, I was close to making the top New Zealand side. So I knew that I wanted to chase that. And so instead of applying myself academically, I sort of just got a job as a painter to try and fund me traveling around to chase, bowling tournaments and et cetera, et cetera. So I became a painter. And I was painting with the firm, his name's Barry Allen, but they were all lawn bowlers. So, we had David File that was in the painting crew. He played for New Zealand back in 1996 in Adelaide. And he played a few other internationals as well. So I jumped on sort of that bandwagon with them, and as well as painting, I learned a fair bit of Dave because he had represented New Zealand, and you sort of just try and rub your shoulders against those kind of guys. He was pretty well known in the bowling circle. So that's sort of the approach that I took to it. I learned a lot of lessons along the way because, time you're 17, you want to go out, you go to bowls tournaments, you drink, you want to do all that stuff. And so I knew what I wanted, but I never really had any goals as such. That kind of thing came a little bit later when I sort of moved away and started applying myself in all areas of my life. But yeah, I became a painter at 17, left school, and still am. Still am.
Yeah, well, exactly. Hey, it's a top profession, mate, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. You know, you're doing your own stuff now as far as that goes, which is great. So, when do you first start winning sort of club titles, and then sort of really starting to live up to your dream?
My club titles started probably when I was about 10, and they were just junior club titles, and I played with my brothers actually. At that stage, we had myself, Adam, Brendan, Travis, and my dad playing. So there was 5 of us playing. We were all young, and the only reason we all played together is because no one else wanted to play with us, because it was difficult growing up when you're that age, and bowls, it just was not accepted as well as what it is today. So it was, Dad got a bit upset at a few people at the bowling club because people wouldn't want to play with us because we were just too young. So we figured it out our own way, and we just thought, well, we'll just play together. There's enough of us. And and we just stayed together for years. And Dad would play with us and us boys. And it wasn't really until we got to about 14 that they started realising that these kids are pretty good. And I'd made New Zealand under-18s by then, so then they started to want to, try and get in our teams. But, Dad would tell them, no, you're not playing with my kids. They're going to carry on. So it was one of those things that it was a challenge. It was a challenge. But at the same time, I think for me personally, it was quite easy being involved in a sport when you got 3 other siblings or 4 other siblings playing, and then your dad as well, all at the same club. So they definitely made it easier for me. And to be honest, I wasn't the pick of the bunch out of all of us. I was probably the bottom, being the youngest, and the other boys were a lot better than me, especially Travis, the oldest one. He could have been something special in the sport if he had carried on. He was winning open titles at a very young age. So it started pretty young when we started winning a few tournaments and club events.
What about centre titles? Presumably you're moving on towards, you're looking at centre titles and then your nationals. Can you remember your first centre title?
My first centre title was, it's a bit of a stab in the dark here. I think it was a fours event that I played with. There's a guy that came down from, I would have been 14, 15 when I won my first one. My brother Travis won one when he was like 13. He had won a centre title, so he was quite young. It was about 15, but then they started coming really quickly. Once we got the first one, the next one didn't take too long, and by the time between 15 and 18 and a half, in that 3.5 year period, I think I had won 9 titles in Gisborne. So that's quite a lot. It's for a young person. You're talking, averaging nearly 3 or 2 or 3 every season. And so but a lot of I think a lot of the reason that they came a lot quicker as well is because when I got exposed to, I suppose, a New Zealand environment, I got to see what it was really like to play at a higher level. And me being me, I was just like a kid in a candy store. I just wanted more and more. And I've just got that natural drive to want to win all the time, and so I think that helped being picked for those age group stuff for New Zealand, and then going back home and playing it down a level. It sort of felt a little bit easier getting those wins. I knew that I only had to beat. There was a couple of players in the centre that were really good, but if I could get through them, that it might come a bit quicker, those wins. So yeah,
I think it must be more than just the drive, because there'd have been a fair few internationals come out of Poverty Bay that wouldn't have won so many in such a short time. So I think the drive and the talent, I think, put the two together. What about on the national scene? When did you get your first national success?
So the first national one would have been the National Fours in we're in Wellington, and I won with Dwayne Cameron, Shane McGonigal, and Ross Thorne, and I was 18 when I won my first one. And yeah, that was a very, very special day for me. That's I think at that stage I was the youngest ever to win a national title in New Zealand, and I'm not too sure if I still hold that. I think Ashley Jeffcoat might have. She was pretty young when she won that pairs with Dale, similar age she was. But we played. It was bizarre because that final we played a whole lot of young kids. There was Andrew Kelly, Stephen Wood, Alan Stewart, and Jimmy Pugh. We played in the final, and they were on the other side of the draw. And I think Stephen Wood was the oldest. He might have been 19, but the others were 17 and under. So if they had rolled us, Alan Stewart might have only been 15. So it was quite remarkable, really. But I had a thing the night before to myself. I thought, I'm not going to let them beat me in a final before me. And played really, really well. And so that was our first one at Nine Bowling Club, the old Nine Bowling Club.
What a magnificent story as well. And I could just see you look at I'm not letting these whippersnappers beat me. And you're only 18, but they're little babes compared to you. That's fantastic. It's a great story. Now,
well, I played against them, you see, through Kitty Hawk. So all of them, they're all at Kitty Hawk, and I used to beat them at Kitty Hawk. And when I see them in the final, that was the first thing I said, I can't let them beat me first. That would just be, so there was a little extra, obviously you don't need too much motivation to win national titles, but there was a little bit of extra there that helps you, keep focused and go, right, you need to really dig deep. And because obviously they did really, really well to get to that far. And yeah, that was amazing. That was the start, I think, of when all the young people started getting noticed a bit more. Was pretty much from then.
Now you represented New Zealand at age grade. When did you first get the tap on the shoulder for the senior side?
Pretty much within 12 months of that. Pretty much in 12 months of that. So back in those days, Stu Butter was in 2006. They had a Commonwealth Games. We won that title, I believe it was 2005. And Stu, they had a Commonwealth Games 2006, and so I got invited into the camp. I was part of the New Zealand carded players back in those days. So you're talking the Russell Myers, Gary Lawson, Brassey, and so on. The legends of our game. They were all involved, and I was lucky enough that I was allowed to go to the camp and compete for a position. And it wasn't meant to be that one. Played really well at the camp and held my own. But they took obviously a vast more experienced players to a Commonwealth Games campaign. And then they had Asia Pacifics not too long after 2007, and I played that one. That was my first international debut. Played with Doug Wilson and Andrew Todd. And then also Richard Gervin joined us in the fours as well.
That's still, you're still young. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Shannon, you alluded to when you were playing in Gisborne as a kid that it was not really socially acceptable, and I can understand that. But how about being a male mouldy playing lawn bowls at that level? Was that a bit of a rarity?
Yeah, it was, especially at a higher level. It was. There weren't too many. Obviously, the ones that a lot of people would know, obviously famous, is obviously Millie Khan, is probably one of the first names that would pop into everyone's head when you talk a Māori iconic bowler. She would be top of the list. So there weren't many. There were a couple that were in for a bit. Kerry Chapman played for New Zealand. He was New Zealand singles player for a wee bit. He was a Māori, very, very good player. And then he didn't stay in there for long. I see he's back playing now, and he has done for the last few years. But not a lot. So there was a lot of. I suppose I got a lot of attention in that space. Being a young Māori kid coming through, it was easy as I got a bit older playing bowls in Gisborne because there was a lot of Māoris playing. Whether it be at a lower level or just socially. So, I mean, all my uncles, they played, all the dad's friends, they were Māori, they all played. So there was lots of Māori players playing in Gisborne. So that was, it felt quite normal. But definitely I noticed when I went away and travelled and played in tournaments, bigger tournaments, that there was a low percentage of Māori players involved in those. So, it sort of led to a lot of attraction, especially with Māori TV when they first started. They would follow me a lot. Got a lot of attention there, and without you even knowing or realizing, you get people coming up to you and saying that you're a role model for these young kids, and you don't actually realize that. And when people start saying stuff like that, it actually makes you think twice about, especially on and off the green, or what you do, because the last thing you want to do, because I once I started hearing stuff like that, I started thinking, okay, well, you can't be really out there being a rat bag. People look up to you and stuff like that, even at a young age, being a young Māori kid. So, So it's cool though. It's I'm very proud of my Māori heritage, and there was an acknowledgement not too long ago in the Māori sports. They had for the last 30 years from the Māori Sports Awards for the top 30 influenced Māori sports people in the history of sport or Māori athletes, and I was in that top 30. So that was quite humbling. And
I'll tell you what, you would have been up there, I reckon, with some of the people that you would have seen as icons. And I bet you George Nepier's up there as well. He would have been one of your sort of cohorts in that top 30.
Well, George Nepo, and it's quite funny because he was from Nuhaka, obviously the Māori All Black. But my mum's dad, his name is George Nepo. And so there's quite a lot of time when people go, "Who's your grandfather?" I said, "George Nepo," and they're just like, "Are you serious?" So we used to play on that one a wee bit. But he's a different George Nepo to my grandfather. But I used to play on that one a wee bit. It was quite funny.
Oh, mate. So would I, mate. So would I. so would I if I've had that opportunity. Now, let's move forward to a massive achievement in yours and any bowler's life. You win the world singles title in Christchurch, so at home in New Zealand in 2016. What do you remember about that? And going into it, did you feel that this is it? Yeah, I'm going to win this.
I had I don't know. I had a feeling that I was going to win even when Scruff picked me for the singles. And I was here, I thought, you know what, doesn't matter who you're playing. I just felt that I had the edge. It's because of I had done it all my life, all those years of wagging school, going to bowling clubs, training, leading up to that, even that whole campaign. I sacrificed so much for that. And it was, and that's what drove me to success. Like I just wanted to win that world singles so bad, but at the same time, it was so clear. I never felt any pressure, even though I was in your backyard. No pressure to win. I just went out there, did my thing, because I knew 100% I had done all the training that I could have done. Everything that I'd done prior to that led to that moment. and I knew I'd done everything. So I never had any seeds of doubt of, I never looked at too far in front of me. I just played what was in front of me and done it really well. And I ran into some guys along the way in that event that usually at that time they used to have the edge over me. I mean, Aaron Sheriff, every time I played for New Zealand prior to 2016, would play 3 or 4 games and he'd always win 3, I would have won, or he'll win 2, I would have won. So he had the numbers over me in regards to wins v losses, and then I ran into him in the semi-final. And I remember Scruff saying, he goes, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Never felt better." This is, I can't wait. Just the ability to embrace moments, and look at what looks like to be an Everest, and look at it and be like, well, it's not impossible. Don't worry about, what they do. Just do what you do really well and just control what you control. Whatever happens will happen. So, and then obviously Bester in the final, my good mate that I've played lots against, and in that time before 2016, same thing. He had the edge over me in regards to wins v losses, but they're just people with 2 arms, 2 legs, no different to everybody else that they can chuck down some good lawn bowls, but so can I. So I think when you take out expectation and you take out pressure, and look at pressure as an opportunity, then I think then you start understanding a lot of 1%ers in sport, especially around pressure environments or pressure scenarios. I just feel that when my back's against the wall a little bit, everything actually comes a lot clearer and able to go another gear and another gear without me even realizing it. But that comes down to, you only get that through experience and putting in the work. So, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, just fantastic. And I think you'd be similar to a lot of other champions in all other disciplines and sports, that thriving under pressure creates winners. And obviously you've shown that over the years. And even again, just recently, I want to quickly ask you this. Got a couple more things I want to move on to, but you've just won, I believe, your 6th Northeast Valley, which is one of the top competitions in New Zealand, and a 3-peat, 3 on the trot. How did that make you feel?
Oh, that's something I'll never forget. That, I mean, Northeast Valley, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to play in about 15 or 16 Northeast Valley events, and my very first year when I was 18, I won it, and I got in because someone pulled out, and so Terry Scott rang me. He said, "Would you be interested in playing?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I follow it. I was only a teenager. I know that all the icons of the game play on it, the best players in the country play on it." And so I went there, and same thing. I just said, I'm going and I'm going to win. I don't care who I'm playing. I'm going to beat them all. And it might sound, cocky or arrogant, but I had this, it's just my mindset. And so I turned up, and the first 2 games, I don't think anybody got past 10. And I was talking with one of my mates, Calvin Budge, that on the Friday night. And he goes, "Far out, you're playing really good." And I said, "Mate, I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it." And he's like, "Well, don't get involved in what they're all getting." I said, "No, I'll drink Coke the whole tournament. I'll be the only one that doesn't drink a beer, and I'll go and win it." And that's what I did. I won all my matches, and by plenty of shots. And it was, I actually told them that I was going to win it, which was probably the thing that they thought, but I think they started realizing that maybe that this he's a little bit different to most young bowlers. He might be cut from a different cloth. So yeah, and then the next year I got to the quarterfinal, got absolutely dusted up by Gary Lawson. I think I scored 7, but still made the top section, and then I won it again. So by the time I was 20, I'd won it twice. And I think playing in the event though, like over all the years, especially with my singles game, I've and when we talk about pressure environments, like it is anyone in New Zealand growing up and wanting to be better at playing or exposing themselves against the better players in a one-on-one event, Northeast Valley is the way. It's taught me a lot of things, and not just bowling, a lot of things off the green, how to hold yourself, your behavior and stuff like that. You learn a lot of stuff that you wouldn't even think you would. And so now when I go there, and the last 3 years are 1 or 3, especially this one, I've had no prep. I've been on a sabbatical. I haven't been bowling. I haven't been training. And I was able to still put myself in a position to win the tournament. And it's just me, but that takes time. I think that just takes time. All my years playing international, the amount of singles games I've played in my life, so many. I just feel like the whole singles discipline, I just know it like the back of my hand. It's just, there's something that gets me going when I play singles, and there are little things in the games that I think I do a lot better than a lot of other players, and I think those are the things that make me get to the finish line in front of them. But to all the young ones that are playing in the now, and they're playing really good, or your Sheldons and your Seamuses and all these young up and coming players, they're playing really well. And I just encourage them that just keep at it, but at the same time, take away some learnings from not just the bowling side, but the other side of how to be a better person, how to hold yourself around people, because the challenge for them is when they started playing with young kids. And I started playing with the old dogs, or the school of hard knocks. So you've got to learn to respect your elders very quickly. When I first started, where for them, they came into the sport with around similar people their age, because it was quite well nationwide. There's a lot of them playing. So that's probably their biggest challenge is to find that. But in due time, mate, not going to take them long, and then they're going to be trying to bang down the door.
Over. Yeah.
But hopefully I've inspired them to want to push just that little bit further, or how to be better, or how to play the game better. Because there's nothing more that I like to see all our young ones be successful. Because I know exactly what it's like being their age and trying to crack into New Zealand teams and stuff. So they just gotta remember that you gotta do the hard yards, and then don't think about results. Just if you do all your hard yards, all that stuff, it'll come back, and it'll pay off eventually.
Yeah, one thing that you haven't mentioned, which I'm sure, and I know that you've mentioned it, that has got you where you are, is the support for your and encouragement of your wife, Amy. Now, where did you first meet? How did this sort of come about?
Oh, she's going to hate me saying this, but I'm going to say it.
You've got to say it.
So we first met. I was playing school bowls, and she was playing for Nayland College, and she's a few years younger than me. I was playing for Lytton High, and so I won a few 3 schoolboy titles in a row. And so when we were at that age, like, everyone was drawn to me because obviously I was the champion from the previous year, and then I won it again and won again. So everyone wanted to hang around the Maori. And Amy was one of those. She was, even though she was younger, she had a you could say, a bit of a crush on me when we were real young. And I was actually with my partner in Gisborne, who I was with right through high school. So back in the day, there used to be like they have Facebook now, there used to be a site called Bebo. And on Bebo, you could send on a daily, there were 3 hearts that you could send to people. And Amy used to always send me these hearts, right? And so my girlfriend at the time, and because I was at that stage, I was about 17, and my girlfriend's like, oh, I think there's a girl this girl Amy's got a crush on you, and I just laughed. I thought, nah. I said, she's just another bowler from down south that plays in the school competition. And she goes, oh, I don't know. She seems to send you all these hearts all the time, and we used to, laugh and joke about it and stuff like that. And I think I never saw her as that when we were obviously for obvious reasons. And then obviously me and Emma had parted, and because we had separate directions we wanted to go in life. Once we turned around about 18, I was chasing my bowls dream and she wanted something else. So we sort of parted ways. And then it's just quite uncanny that a couple of years later, or a year and a half later, that me and Amy are together. So, and we've been together ever since. We got married in 2013. Been together for 13 years, something like that, 13 years, 14 years. So it's and to be honest, like without over all the years we've been together, we've had some highs and lows and stuff. But the one thing that she and her family have always done is always supported me, and without me even knowing, and because they're successful people, her family, they really are. In what they do with their lives as well. Her dad played hockey for New Zealand Masters. Her mother was a top badminton player when she was younger. Her uncle was Wayne Hodson, who could have played cricket for New Zealand with Jock Edwards in that era. So they had sporting talent through their whole family. And, Tim and Ray, when used to always challenge me all the time, what do you want to be? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now. And without me even knowing, it changed my whole mentality of life in general. And it's led me to where I am now.
You can't give higher praise to your partner than that. And you've got two lovely boys as well. Now, I could talk to you for ages, Shannon, but we're going to get to the chop soon because we've run out of time. I always ask a few questions at the end. They're just simple, easy answer ones. All right. So you ready?
Ready.
All right. Have you got a pet?
Had one. I had several, but no, not at the moment.
Don't tell me you had to have it put down last week. I hate it when these things happen. But what pet did you have?
We had our dog Kobe, and he had to get put down. A year and a bit ago now. We had him before we had our kids. So lovely dog, spaniel. Poor little bugger. He broke his elbow plates after 2 weeks of us getting him. Oh. And so he had to go through surgery, and I remember. Actually, I've got to say this. The dog was supposed to be for Amy's mother because they had a dog, a spaniel, that went blind and had to be put down. So Amy's sister thought it'd be a good idea a couple of years later to get Raywin a dog. So when they brought the dogs over from the Rye Valley, they bought two. For her to choose, a chocolate one or a black one. And so Raywin took the chocolate one, and then Amy decides, we can't leave the other one. He'll be lonely. So she wanted the other one. so we ended up with both of them, and they were about $1,000 each for these dogs. And then 2 weeks later, Kobe jumped off the side of the retaining wall at Raywin and Tim's place, and he landed awkwardly, and it broke his bone by his growth plate, so he had to have operation. And that, I think in total, by the time he was fixed and he got back home with flights and everything, it was about $7,000 within 2 weeks.
Mate, I feel your pain. I adopted a 10-week-old mutt, basically, rescued dog who's a part American pit bull, part Kelpie, and by the time he was 6 months old, we thought there was something wrong with his back legs. They kept dislocating. 2 operations, $5,000 later. He's bombing around like crazy now, but I feel your pain. Your favourite sports team? Your favourite sports team?
All Blacks. Always has been, always will be.
Your favourite sports star? What sports star do you admire?
Well, there's probably a few. So when I was a kid, probably Michael Jordan was because my brother was a keen, and he still is. He's a very good basketball player, and he has he runs a high performance training facility in Perth for up and coming sports stars, basketball players. So every time we were at home, it was Michael Jordan was on the TV with tapes and stuff, and Travis used to, and so I grew a real strong connection towards Michael Jordan. He was probably my first favorite sports star. So I'd have to say him.
Yeah, no, I mean I love him as well. I used to live in Chicago. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, so he's obviously a big favourite of mine. Movies. I don't know if you go to the movies much. You probably haven't got time because you're too busy looking after the kids or bowling. Have you got a favourite movie?
Got a probably. I would have to say Shawshank Redemption. Would be
so many people say that, mate. I tell you what, that is such a popular and a very good film as well, but such a popular one.
And a close second would be Gladiator.
Right, there you are. But a Kiwi boy in that one as well. Now, band music. If you could go and see any band, alive or dead, which one would it be?
To be honest, I've never really had a favorite band as such, but for me, honestly, mate, I'd just say LAB.
Yeah, why not? I quite enjoy those.
I just love the sound. I love, I'm a bit of a New Zealand reggae sort of vibey kind of, and I never really, my dad used to play us Dr. Hook when we were kids, and that's all we could listen to, traveling to bowls, Kitty Hawks and stuff like that. So I know all of his albums, but that wasn't by choice. So yeah, I'd say LAB. Love LAB.
LAB backed up by Catch a Fire and Herbs, maybe. Right. And if this is the final question we ask everyone, if you were end up on death row, what would be your last meal?
Oh, this might be a lot different to everybody else's, but mine, honestly, would be Kinner's, crayfish, and paua.
I knew you were going to say Kinner. I don't know why I knew it, probably because earlier on you were talking about you growing up and free diving with your dad and doing all that stuff. I can't think of anything worse than Kinner, and that's only slightly better than paua. But the middle bit, I'll share the crayfish with you.
Honestly, like Kinner's, when I first, because obviously we grew up on the sea, and Mum said, she says you're about 2 years old. And she said, you had your first Kinner, and they were shelling them and putting them all in ice cream containers. There was heaps. There was no math back then. So you can grab as many Kinners. The sea had a heap of shellfish and stuff like that. So Dad used to, you'd have 100 Kinners. And Mum said that they were shelling them. They were down to the last 20. I took one spoonful and I just grabbed the whole bowl and took it, and there was no Kinners left.
Well, and you've still got that love of it today.
I love them. They're so nice, so good. There's nothing like Kinners, and people that do like them, they would understand. And people that don't like them, they don't taste like anything else. There's nothing that tastes like them.
No, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Maybe I need to have a revisit and try to see if I've acquired the taste for them. Shannon McIlroy, thank you so much for your time, mate. And let's keep our fingers crossed that this COVID thing dies down and you can get out there and defend your world title very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, Miles. Thanks, mate.
And they were rampaging along, won their first 2 games. They've lost their last 2, but they could have probably won both of them. Fantastic looking facility there in the deep south. I'm sure they're going to come out firing tonight. From memory, he was leading last week. Are you going to be leading this week, or from bottom with 6 points and second from bottom with 5? Yes and no. Yes and no. It paid off for them. They got a 2, doubled a 4, and won 6 points. Depends what the teams above you do, doesn't it? Unbiased. Miles Davis.